To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on any discussions that it has had with Police Scotland about the policing of protests outside hotels and other accommodation for people seeking asylum.
Minister Siobhan Brown.
Presiding Officer, Scottish ministers have regular discussions with Police Scotland on a range of issues, including the policing of protests. Operational policing is a matter for Police Scotland, and they have confirmed that they have the appropriate resources to ensure the safety of those in attendance and to mitigate disruption to the wider community. Police Scotland is a rights-based organisation committed to facilitating peaceful protests and counter-demonstrations to allow those seeking to protest to exercise their human rights. But let me be clear, there is no place for criminality or hate crime on our streets, and I fully support Police Scotland to take the appropriate and proportionate action in response to such behaviour.
Maggie Chapman.
In the North East, we've seen anti-immigration protests in Peterhead, West Hill, Aberdeen and Dundee. The Stobswell Forum in Dundee issued a statement highlighting the fear and alarm caused by these so-called protesters following their actions in a public park. The same protesters then marched in an unorganised way over the A90 Kingsway and held an intimidating and hate-filled protest outside the homes of asylum seekers. They spread false information, anti-immigration information online, causing fear and alarm amongst parents of young children. They hurled stones and other missiles at anti-fascists. What proactive action is being taken to respond to the far-right influence on these protests and the intimidation they cause to residents and local communities?
Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I am deeply concerned about some of the rhetoric we are seeing across the UK, which should have no place in our society. Therefore, it is vital that factual information is also placed in the public domain. And I would say, as elected members across the UK, that as democratically elected representatives with a platform, we have a duty and a responsibility to ensure that we call out any dangerous misinformation. And we certainly do not perpetrate it. People have the right of peaceful protest in a democracy, but the protests outside the hotels go far beyond what is acceptable in our country, which historically has a humane approach to those fleeing conflict and persecution, and one which we should be proud. These protests are creating a sense of real fear and alarm to those who have already gone through so much already. In saying that, it is important that we engage with the people protesting, to hear their concerns, to understand that the reasons that are driving them to protest. And I know Police Scotland continue to engage with protesters through liaison officers, and the Scottish Government has funded the Centre for Good Relations to work with those who are protesting to hear their concerns.
Mercedes Villalba.
Thank you. I'm aware, obviously, we've brought in legislation to create boundaries, buffer zones around clinics to prevent people accessing services from being harassed. I wonder what consideration the Minister or the Government has given to establishing some kind of boundary around residential dwellings to prevent people in their homes being harassed.
Minister.
Thank you. The right to free speech and protest is at the heart of a healthy democracy, and the Scottish Government is committed to uphold the right, but understands the distress that these protests are causing to residents across asylum accommodation. Creating buffer zones, similar to those introduced with the abortion clinics, would require new legislation, and we don't have any current plans to do that, but we will continue to monitor the situation.
Question number